Welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. Our theme for 2025 is the future of work. Meaning is the new money. In a world shaped by rapid innovation and constant change, the pursuit of purpose and impact has never been more important. I'm Dr. John Dentico, your host, bringing over 30 years of experience in leadership, strategic thinking, and purpose-driven innovation. Here, we tackle the pressing challenges of our time, from the rise of artificial intelligence to the growing need for meaning in the workplace. Together, we'll uncover how leaders can ethically integrate AI to enhance decision-making and keep humanity at the heart of their organizations. Remember, amidst all the technological advancements, in the end, it's always about the people. This podcast is your resource for actionable tools, thought-provoking discussions, and inspiring stories. It's time to go beyond leadership development and focus on leadership impact, creating workplaces where people thrive, innovation flourishes, and meaning truly becomes the new currency. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now, let's throttle up and dive into today's episode. Hello again and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Dr. John Dentico. With me today is Dr. James Chitwood. Jim is an Army infantry veteran, a former university and college president, professor, and administrator. And after enduring a childhood of chaos and abuse, Jim resolved to make the world a better place. The universe led him to a highly successful career in post-secondary education. He thought he had found his way to help people, but the universe had other plans, leading him towards his current state as an author and consultant. He is now an operations expert who focuses on people as organizational assets rather than liabilities. He has applied his 20 years of experience in doctoral research, which revealed the link between organizational systems and productivity in his book, Leadership is Not Enough. He works with companies of all sizes to establish positive practices and procedures to create environments where employees thrive. I am truly pleased to have him here today with me on the podcast. Always great to welcome a fellow veteran. Hello, Jim. How are you today?
I'm well, JD. How about yourself, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Awesome.
Hey, Jim, let's get to it, as I like to say. Not fluff in the beginning. We'll get right down into it.
All right.
Okay, so let me ask you this, one of my most favorite questions. Can you define or describe your idea of leadership? That is to say, how might you describe the purpose of leadership?
Oh, absolutely. I believe the purpose of leadership is to develop employees. I see employees as the most valuable asset in an organization, and leadership's job is to help them be better assets.
Great. Great. I appreciate that. What about change, Jim? Let me ask you this. How do you see leadership play a role in making substantive, big change?
Yeah,
Any thoughts on that?
leadership's role during a change environment is one of obviously there are a lot of internal variables which have to be considered, right? When we are changing from one state to another state, there's a lot of influences that we have to take into account. Yet it is the communication that I think is the leader's primary role, is to keep everybody engaged, aware, and moving in the right direction. I don't believe people fear change. I believe they fear uncertainty. And so if we can help them realize their better future through this change, that's the job of the leader.
That's great. I would agree. From my perspective, I contrast leadership and management this
Mm.
way. I look at the processes. I'm not looking so much at the people, but at what's the output of the process. Okay. And we're going to talk more about process here in a few seconds, I know with you. But I see leadership on the transformative change scale, if you will, and manage it more on the incremental change scale. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Let me go to something that you mentioned in our pre-workup in the dialogue we created via email before this podcast today. I want to find out more about your performance culture model.
Mhm.
Okay, let's peel that onion back a bit. Tell me about what it is And how do you think it's different, if you will, from other performance ideas or models?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the real difference is the synergistic nature of it. The reason I use the word elements to describe my model is because elements come together to make something stronger. I don't use the word pillars because pillars are strong and they hold up your culture. Sure, absolutely, but they don't touch. When we're talking about humans, we are talking about a beautifully dynamic, chaotic entity. And we need to recognize that the elements work together, not in isolation. And what I mean by that is this: the four elements of my model are training, recognition, accountability, and communication. They all work as one strategy. So many organizations look at training as this liability issue and it's over on the side and it gets cut when budget issues happen. It's the first thing to get cut in so many companies when they have training, when they have, performance issues. And the problem with that is training is directly related to accountability, right? If you have an employee who's underperforming, you need to train them, develop them to help them improve. And when they do, you then need to apply recognition, right? And all of that is wrapped in communication. And that's just one small example of how all of these elements work together to create a single strategy. So there's lots and lots of data and empirical evidence and books upon books talking about each of these in isolation. I see them as one single strategy to produce a performance environment.
Interesting. My listeners are probably, you even as a listener may get tired of me. I look at the big three of the wants and needs of the skilled workforce as it exists today. Number one is they're looking for values alignment. They want to know you care about the same things they care about. Number two is they want to be involved in the decision making processes of the organization, right? They want to matter
Yeah.
and they want their work to matter. And we all are searching for a level of control and autonomy over our own destinies. And the third one, as you so aptly pointed to, is they want training and learning that develops them professionally. And I will tell you, a few weeks ago, I was working with a company, a fence building company, builds fences in America, about a $20 million operation, 7 different locations. And without going into all the detail, one of the things they realized, we were doing a strategic thinking session as opposed to strategic planning session. Strategic planning, you're looking to find answers to questions. Strategic thinking, you're making sure you're asking yourself the right questions. Yep, difference. Okay. One of the things they realized was there was no training pipeline in the company. In other words, we take a new kid off on a manner of speaking. We invite somebody to come in. What do we do for them? Why would they want to come work for us if we're not going to develop them professionally? And one of the branch managers said, this is the most important thing. From his perspective, he said, you know what? Bringing people in, training them, saying, we're going to take you from here to there. So very important. I'd love to hear a reflection of that from you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm working with a client right now and developing a management training program from first hire through VP level. I think many organizations make the mistake of promoting someone to management and not teaching them how to manage, right? How to have a difficult conversation, how to do a one-on-one meeting, right? How to reward your employees without being exclusive and leaving other people out, right? How to be a manager is different than how to lead, right? And so there are, it's different when as a manager, you're no longer the one responsible for the outcome. It's the team that produces it, and you have to help them develop. And so many employees are promoted to management because they know how to do a job and they do it really well. And then they get into management and then just expect everybody to do it exactly the way they did it because that's how they were successful. And that's where micromanagement comes in, right? Versus if we teach them how to manage at that basic level, and then a director leading managers is different than leading employees, right? And so you have to teach a person how to be a director. Now you're starting to talk more about strategic planning, right? Because now you're getting higher. And then at the VP level, right? And so every one of those levels is a critical juncture. And so to your point, if you can show an employee, listen, come in here and do well, dedicate yourself, engage, be part of us, we will develop you all the way to VP status. And here is exactly the plan to get there.
I don't know how many will stay to be the VP status
No.
in a manner of speaking because they're so mobile.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the nature of the beast. I was talking to a group yesterday, as I mentioned to you, And I said, look, if you've got good folks for 5 years, you've done well.
Yeah. That's your
You've done
mark.
really
That's
well.
your mark.
That's the success mark right
Hmm.
there. And then I tried to back up a little bit. I've had a previous guest named Stephen Copshaw. He's an entrepreneur in the health and wellness industry. And we're having a discussion, this is several months ago. And he says, I want to pour so much into my employees that even if they leave me and go someplace else, they'll be an asset to another company.
Mhm.
Because Stephen understood that whatever industry you're in, and good people may leave just because it's time, as far as they're concerned, right? And move on. You're feeding the ecosystem.
Right.
You're feeding the ecosystem of your industry. And that's a wonderful legacy
Absolutely.
to live by. I'd love to get your ideas, your thoughts on that comment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Back to I always say my job is to teach you how to take my job. It doesn't mean you're actually going to take my job. You may go somewhere else and take my job somewhere else. But my job as your manager is to teach you to take my job, right? And I firmly believe that the reason I use the flower of life for my model is because I believe in that energy that is shared by all life on our planet. It's what the flower of life symbolizes. And to your point, we just make the world better when we lift each other up. It's really that simple.
What's interesting, I've mentioned this several times before. This is a military way of looking at it. Sure, we used to have
Yeah.
grow your own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You take some new kid in, whether it's an officer or enlisted, and I always said, "You give me the person with a really great attitude, I'll teach him to do anything
Every day.
every single day."
Yeah.
And you bring them along, I want this guy to succeed. I
Hmm.
want this person to take over.
Hmm.
And when you're an operations officer and you've got division officers on a ship, you want to train them to be the department. You're getting them ready for the next step.
Right.
So part of that process is to train the future generations. So I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's absolutely imperative. Sometimes you don't see that, as you say, in quote unquote the civilian realm.
Right.
People are worried about are you going to take my job and different things. I think there has to be a much broader, more of a magnanimous, if you will. So it's how you bring younger people into the organization.
Absolutely.
I wanted to talk to you about this because something you wrote again in our pre-workup resonated with me deeply, and I saw it and I said I've got to talk to him
Mhm.
about this. And this is the idea that a lot of people think that if you fix one thing, everything will be better.
Mm.
Okay, we fixed that. Life is going to be great now. Not necessarily. Let's talk about what I refer to as systemic effect.
Mhm.
Okay, it's a systemic effect. Just to give you a note, this past Monday, I published a podcast episode with Dr. Ashley Poklar, and I forgot how much I enjoyed my conversation with her till I went back and started doing the post processing. She is very much into systemic change. And I very much am into this notion, this concept. How do you do systemic change? Now she's dealing with issues like stamping out child exploitation.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's the issue she's focused on. It was pretty, I said,
That's a big one.
what a hero. You're gonna be, yeah, you'll be a 4-star angel sometime about
Yeah,
it.
for sure.
But I don't think people understand. I want to have you talk about this. But people don't understand that if just because you fixed one thing over here, it doesn't make everything else wonderful. I would love to hear from you about that, Jim. Go ahead and take it and run with it.
I couldn't agree more. So many organizations are always looking for the one, the single, right? Tell me the one thing I need to do. And I'm like, I can tell you one part of the one thing, which is everything, right? We need to understand that any change in any area will affect every other area. It is the ripple effect of just organizational systems as a whole. I mean, you can just look at a car. If you change the smallest of thing or one part of it goes bad, pretty soon the entire car will suffer because it just functions that way. And that's a simple machine. Now, you look at the complexity of a human, and we all know that if you mess up one part of the human body, it has these massive effects to everything else. Organizations are no different. They are nothing but systems and machines made up of humans, right? And when we're looking for the single answer, we're looking for a short-term win and not a long-term gain. And if we're interested in the health of the organization over the long haul, we have to look at it as one big holistic operation and understand the butterfly effect of a change and at the smallest of scales.
Right. Yeah. The quantum mechanics. Yeah. The quantum mechanics perspective. You change one tiny thing over here, it has a rippling effect across everything else. This notion of systems thinking.
Hmm.
Every organization is a system of systems.
Yep.
And you change one thing and you will have this rippling effect. I absolutely believe in that. And it could be good. But a lot, when Peter Senge wrote The Fifth Discipline, I'm sure I read this in his book, he talked about an organization as though it were, like you said, a human body.
Yeah.
And when you introduce change as though it were a bacteria in a human body, the body says, wait a minute, this is changing over here. We have to stamp that out. Okay, all you antibodies, let's get together. And even if it's successful, because I hate to say it, but I'll say it, because you're probably making other people look bad because they're just not on board. This is not the refrains.
Yep.
This is not the way we've always done it. We've done it this way for 40 years. Why do we have to change now?
Right.
Except that the environment, as you well know, this VUCA world we live in, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, is all about change. It's all about change. Tomorrow it could change.
Yeah.
This afternoon it could change significantly, not just a little change, but a big change. We saw that over. It's just an unbelievable level of change across the board, and people were just overwhelmed by it.
Right.
No question about it.
Right.
So I absolutely agree with you, and thank you for that. I appreciate
Yes,
that.
sir.
I wanted to ask you this because this is my pet thing, right? Like going down the road here. So let me talk a little bit about it. The subject is mission statements. Okay, the subject is mission statements. For a long time, I shied away from talking about mission statements. And I said to myself, the reason was, you ask somebody, do you have a mission statement? And they'd point over, oh, yeah, it's over there. Do you live it? Do you breathe it? Do you do it every day? No, we walk by it every day. And it was this, I can't help it, Jim, but my rather sarcastic nature leaks in every once in a while. I'm sure it's from my military days. I call paragraph after paragraph a roulette wheel mission statement. It's like you go to the betting table next to the roulette wheel and you want to put money on every number.
Right.
We'll put money on everything. We'll have a sure winner. Yeah, but you're going to lose a lot of money in between. And I think you get one sentence. And one sentence to really capture the essence of what your organization is about and what they intend to do. I would love to hear your ideas on the importance of a focused mission statement in general to an organization.
Now, people, we it's interesting. There was a period of time when this was core to how organizations operated with their employees, and then it got lost. But now we're bringing it back. And that is recognition that employees, to be engaged, they have to believe, right? And they have to believe
Right.
in their organization, what it's doing, the purpose of it. I'm very fascinated to see what this next generation of socially conscious leaders is going to bring into the workforce. I'm just fascinated by it and their ecological perspective as well, right? What we do to the planet. And so it just fascinates me that consumers now will spend more on a product because they know that organization aligns with their own intrinsic values, right? And that's what the mission needs to be. It needs to be a directional arrow. You can't have 50 directional arrows, right? You need
Right.
to have one. You need to have one North Star that organization points to and sees to. And so often, to your point, okay, where's your mission statement and do you do it? They'll say, we try to every day. We try to. I go back to that old Yoda saying, there is no try. You do or you don't do. And so it's really, if you've got too many arrows up there, you have no idea where you're going.
Yeah, I absolutely. As I was talking to this group yesterday, and I said, if you want people to join, let me back up. The great slogan and mission statement I use, the great slogan is from the movie 300 with Gerard Butler, right? This is Sparta, right? Does anybody not know who we are? Down to HR and have a discussion. No, this is Sparta. This is who we meet the enemy and destroy them, okay? We send children into the wilderness to fight menacing beasts because this is Sparta. And the beauty of it is, again, that's a slogan, not necessarily but the idea is it's so simple and it's so powerful and it's so values aligned. As I like to say, even the farmers new. They were feeding the warriors. They were part of the Spartan culture. And I absolutely agree with you. It has to be right on target. And as you have so aptly pointed out, people will make buying decisions for services and goods based on what you say you are all about and what you care about.
All right.
So I'm in line with that. And thank you for that. I appreciate it. So we're getting closer to the end, Jim.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you this question, okay? And that is my magic wand question. And that is simply this. If you had a magic wand, you could wave it at any particular issue or problem. What would it be and why did you choose that, please?
Sure, absolutely. It's where do you place your employees on the balance sheet? Are they assets or are they liabilities? Assets are things that we invest in. Liabilities are things that we minimize, right? And I base this off of if we go back to the late 60s, very early 80s, we saw two things happen at the same time over that period of time. We saw one, the massive exportation of labor, right? Employees were no longer organizational assets, they were liabilities. We had to find the cheapest way to do it, and we just shipped them to anywhere. We didn't care because they weren't us as a company. They were just this liability that we needed to figure out how to minimize, right? So we saw that happen. And then the other thing that we saw was this disparity between top pay and bottom pay, right? Between the CEO pay and you can look at the median pay, the average pay, the lowest pay of an organization. Either way, one of those variables, choose one, you're going to see this massive discrepancy. So we've seen two things happen. We have seen the idolization of the great CEO and the minimization of the value of the employee. And those of us with a servant's heart, so to speak, we recognize that it is the employees that make up the organization, that they are the asset. It is them that makes the organization thrive. And to me, I honestly believe that where we are today is a threat to capitalism. We have lost Adam Smith's original mission. Now, in the Wealth of Nations, everybody takes it as it's all about a free market economy. That is a symptom. It is an outcome of what I believe is really the core of the book, which is voluntary participation of labor, right? People choosing to come together with the organization. And those are assets that are viewed by the organization and invested in order to grow the org as a whole, right? In the Wealth of Nations, every asset is invested in. It's pretty simple because you recognize that as a cornerstone of the long-term success of the organization. So I would say magic. I like the magic crayon, but magic paintbrush, absolutely. Where do you place your employees? Are they assets or liabilities?
Jim, you open the door. I'm going to go through it. Okay. I'm going to go through it. I always try to look for ways, if you will, an image to explain, as I'm sure you do, difficult concepts or big ideas and shrink it down into much smaller, bite sized things. And this is what I've been talking about lately, to your point. For 60 or 70 years in the world of leadership, we have tried to create, in terms of the senior managers, the leader of the organization, CEO, president, we've tried to create a generation of Jedi Knights, okay? With the hope that if things became too difficult and we hire Jedi when the business is not doing well, that they will come, brandish their light sword, and vanquish the problems and the issues that lay before us. And what I'm saying to people now is senior leaders in the organization have to truly see themselves more like Yoda. That in fact, what there is to raise a generation of Jedi Knights. And what did Yoda do? He was the facilitator. He was the teacher. The philosopher. Luke, here, go in that cave, find out. You may not want to go in there, but you're going to find out some interesting things. He allowed him to fail. And I think we have to start, leaders and organizations have to see themselves more like that. And what that says is that your employees are really where it's at. They're the ones that are going to do the job. They're on, as we say in the Navy, they're on the deck plate. Or to use an army, they're knee deep in the trenches, and that's where the real magic comes. I had a wonderful guest by the name of Stephen Howard on several months ago. Stephen has written 22 books on leadership and management. Great guy. And we're having this conversation. At the end of the conversation, we're talking about the impact, talking in general, the impact on recruiting and retaining people. And he said to me, John, you have to understand, the talent wars are over and the talent won. Okay? They won't stay for just a paycheck any longer. They'll go someplace else. He told me the story of two executives who signed on to a company. Their onboarding experience wasn't very good. After they were there for a couple of weeks, it just really wasn't coming together. They left. They didn't have anything else in their hands. They just said, we're not doing this. And even though you read comments nowadays about the job starting to get soft and different things like that, I had another guest named Arnaud Lucas, Chief Technology Officer for Wanderoo, a company dealing in travel, trade and bus travel. He said to me, yeah, we're making adjustments more often. And yeah, there are layoffs in tech, but we're always looking for great talent. We're always looking for the right people to fill the right jobs. So to your point, and I absolutely celebrate that. It's in the end, AI, all of it. It's always about the people. Any final comments from you, Jim?
No, I couldn't agree more. Going back to Yoda, if you notice, Yoda never really answered questions, right? He got the person to bring it out. Like one of my favorite things to teach a new manager is that the best thing they can ever say when presented with something is say, I don't know. What do you think? Even if they have the answer, just to get that other person involved in the solution. And that's a critical component of leadership.
Right. My model of leadership that I started developing 30 years ago has one basic foundation element. One. Not 10, not 6, not 5. One. And you're right. It's not enough. It's not enough. You have to understand how the system works in and of itself. I get that. I agree with that. But my foundational element is contribution. Any thoughts? Anybody want to help? Anybody want to jump in here? I'm open. Just let's see what we can do. Let's put it on the table and see where we can wash it all out.
Right.
And I think that's really important today is can you allow people can you bring them into the process? And can you create an environment where people come to do their best work every single day?
Right.
So I absolutely, there are those, and I'm sure you recognize this. I've talked to Dave Nordell, former Air Force officer, Master Chief in the Air Force. And we say people look at the military and say, don't you guys just run around barking at people all the time, barking orders at people? They say, no, it's called the all volunteer force for a reason. They leave. And everything is built on trust.
Absolutely.
It's all about trust. If you don't have trust, you have nothing.
Right.
That's so very important. I'll give you the final word, Jim. Take it and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, absolutely. Leadership development is important. We first need to start with the systems that create the environment. And you said it best, right? It is the environment that the employees work within. Because the truth of the matter is, most of the decisions they're making day to day, the leader's not sitting right next to them. It's their employees, their peers that are sitting right next to them. And if the environment is right, those peers are both holding each other accountable and lifting each other up. And that is when you've got a true performance culture.
Great job. I appreciate it. I'm with you.
Awesome.
I'm with you all the way. I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for being here today on the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast.
Thank you.
I truly appreciate your time and effort. I wish you all the success in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I'm appreciative. It's been great.